Okay, it's been a while since I've been out here, working on this anyway. Matter of fact, the last time I worked on it, I really had to quit because it was too cold out here for my glue, my wood glue. But those days are over. It's 90 degrees, something like that yesterday. The only thing I have done since we last visited this blower was I made this piece here to hold on I welded it onto a washer to hold that gear. I welded a washer on the back side. Let me see if I can, oh, that's tight. I welded a washer onto the shaft down there to hook the fan on. And just yesterday I welded this piece of flat steel here onto the bolt that will be where the crank's hooked up. I'll have to drill 4 holes in this and bolt that down to that gear. I did move this gear from this down here to this up here because it was, this right here was rubbing. It would rub on the shaft sticking out there. So now it's way out of the way, doesn't rub anymore. Everything works pretty smooth. Without the support on this side, I can't really give it a good spin. I do need to flatten that. I didn't get that washer on quite flat enough. I'll take it over and peen it with a hammer here in a little bit, flatten it out. Everything else runs pretty flat. So that's where we're at. Here's a little better look at this collar that I've put on this washer. Here's one that I've not used yet. I got these at Fastenal, which you can find a Fastenal just about everywhere. They had to order them for me, but that was no problem. They just got them from another site. I pretty much welded it on one side. I tacked it on the other side just a little bit right there because you have to, it has to squeeze, of course. There, I adjusted that a little bit. It runs a little bit truer. Still wobbles a little bit, but it's not going to hurt, I don't think. So now I'll drill those holes for that one over there. Now this side of the shaft here is also the threads of the bolt head. I didn't think that was enough to hold that, so I did add this washer, welded it up to the shaft, and by doing that, of course, that's why I had to come up with the collar. That's why I had to come up with the collar on this gear so that I could get it on and then get it tight in place. And it worked real good, and I think really that's the only one of those I need. I got 4 of them, I think it was, but I'll take that back. I probably use a couple of them on some of these shafts to hold them in place, like maybe on the back side of the crank. I might put one there, and I'll probably put one here on this shaft just to hold it, to keep it from sliding in and out. Put a spacer down there to hold the fan out at a distance. Okay, I've got the gear attached, the drive gear. Thought I'd show what I've done back here. I put a washer in just to buffer up against the wood. Cut a small piece of tubing as a spacer so that that fits up against that bearing and stops, and there's enough room on there for one of those collars to hold that at that spot. So that's done. now what I need to do is make my crank handle. So let's get after that. Well, I have the mechanism completed. Today I made a handle, and I put spacers in between the housing boards here. A couple to hold it up off the table high enough. I mounted that plate on the side of that gear right there with 4 wood screws. Got the handle locked in there. That handle is threaded. Tighten that up a little bit. The handle's threaded, and then I got a nut on each side of it, so it should hold it pretty good. I put some paste wax on the gears. That's about the max speed there. So now I need to make a housing for the fan. Of course, it is a bi-directional. I may have to put some Loctite on them nuts. I get a little slippage in there every now and then. There's quite a bit of torque on there with that handle, but that's no problem. I can put a little Loctite on it, a little red Loctite. So a little bit more is done. Like I said, the next thing on the agenda is the housing for around the fan. So we'll bring you back when we get to that. So I have the housing, the outside housing for my fan shroud cut. All I need to do now is add opening for the air to go out of. How I made this is I took some pieces of 2x6, cut them at close to a 22.5 degree angle. It must not, either the angle wasn't exact or the length of each one wasn't exactly the same length, because it didn't come together at one point, but that's no big deal because there's going to be an opening in it anyway. Anyway, I glued these together using screws in at an angle like this to hold it together, to clamp it. And actually the glue held pretty good. These are the pieces I trimmed off the side. I trimmed it first on one side just a little bit, and then on the other side to make it the right size. However, as you can see, that joint right there is still holding together with just the little bit of glue there, so the glue must be holding pretty good. So that's where I'm at. Now I'm going to figure out Don't know exactly how I'm going to make the opening, but I'll figure it out. While I'm on the subject of glue joint quality, here's the piece, or part of it anyway, that come off of the inside of that when I trimmed it off, and you can see how a little bit of that joint is still left there and how the glue is still holding up. That one right there is even still stiff. It's down to about, well, 1/16 of an inch, still holding. So the glue joints, I think, are going to hold up in the fountain housing.